to let everyone know that this meeting will be recorded and shared later on the City of Boston's Disabilities social media channels. We have an agenda for this event. First, we're going to have a presentation from the City of Boston's Disabilities Commissioner, Kristen McCosh, who will explain the history and current status of the advisory board. Then you're going to get a chance to meet some of the current members of the advisory board who are here with us today. Thank you for coming. Then you will have the opportunity to ask some questions. Now, we encourage you to ask your questions in the chat. And this is because if we run out of time, we'll be able to revisit those questions in the chat. And we want to make sure that everybody's questions get answered. But that said, there will be 5 to 10 minutes for attendees to ask questions using their camera and audio features. And those are the housekeeping rules for this event. And now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Kristen McCosh.
Thank you, Colleen. Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad you're joining us tonight for this information session. I know a lot of you have applied for a board seat already, and we've had some transition. You may be aware that we've had 3 mayors in the last year and a half. So we haven't filled all the seats. So we do still have some of your applications, but we wanted to open it up to people who haven't applied as well, just so they could learn about the board and see if they were interested in applying. So I also have other staff supporting me tonight on this webinar. I have Andrea Patton, who's my Chief of Staff, and we have Chris Morowski, who is our Staff Support Specialist. So Chris, I'm going to ask you to begin sharing the slide deck. Great. Can everybody see that? Excellent. Okay, so as I said, welcome to the Disability Commission Advisory Board information session. It's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to go through, but don't worry, you don't have to memorize it all. We'll email you out this slide deck so you can refer to it after this meeting. So we'll go to the next slide. So for the agenda, we'll just do the welcome and introductions, and then we will go over some of the elements of the advisory board. I'm going to talk about the mission, the responsibilities, and those are the things that the board is charged with, the requirements to serve on the board, talk about the board officers, talk about our public meetings, go over some of the activities that board members work on. And then at the end, you'll get a chance to meet some of our current board members. I saw a lot of them log on, so I'm excited to introduce them to you. Then, as Colleen said, we'll have time for Q&A, and we can do live questions if anyone has difficulty using the chat. And then some updates from our office. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. And on screen tonight are myself and Colleen. So the mission of the Disability Commission Advisory Board in Boston. First of all, we were established in 2009, and this came about a group of advocates and residents with disabilities really petitioned City Hall to get more involved in civic activities. So it was Mayor Menino at the time, so he listened to the advocates and he agreed to adopt the Disability Commission Advisory Board statute, which is Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8J. And that basically is gives the regulations of disability commissions throughout Massachusetts. So we can put that link in the chat if you'd like to see the actual language of the statute and the regulations. But basically, I kind of summarized them all in this presentation, so you don't have to read the actual legal language. But anyway, the disability commissions are established to address concerns related to people with disabilities and to promote the full integration of people with disabilities into all aspects of life in the city of Boston. Now, one thing that's a little bit unique about Boston, because we're such a big city, obviously the biggest city in the state, we have a Disability Commission office, which is the office that I run, and I have a total of 7 staff. So we refer to our Disability Commission as the advisory board, but in the statute, you will see they call it a Disability Commission. So when you hear commission, it really has a connotation of volunteer, but because we have the commission office, we refer to the volunteer group as the advisory board. And we can go to the next slide. So I'll just go over briefly some of the member responsibilities. So advisory board members are charged with researching local issues related to people with disabilities, advising municipal officials on compliance with disability laws, giving input on city policies and services for people with disabilities, taking actions as a board on important disability issues, encouraging public awareness of disability issues, sharing information on disability issues with other residents, and collaborating with other groups who are working on disability issues. And just to flesh these out a little, I'll give you a few examples. So one thing that you could encourage public awareness and spread information about, one way you could do that is we ask our board members, when we give a presentation at a monthly public meeting, we ask them to spread that information to their networks so that everybody gets the information and it doesn't just stay with them. So that's one way you can be really helpful if you're appointed as a board member. Another way is to collaborate with like BCIL and the Disability Policy Consortium to work together to write letters of support or concern about different initiatives, different state bills, and even city ordinances. So we'll talk more about that as we go through the slides. And we'll go to the next one. So the requirements of serving on our board. Advisory board members are appointed by the mayor of Boston. Currently, that is Michelle Wu. She has not made any appointments since she's been mayor, which is just about 6 months now. So this will be her first round of making appointments. The board is made up of 13 residents of Boston. We aim to have diversity in disability identity, race, gender, neighborhood, so that we have a true representation of the city. Right now, we have 11 board seats filled and 2 open. But that can change at any time. People step down, terms expire. So we're happy to have this pool of people who are interested in applying. And if you weren't appointed this time, don't be discouraged because we're always looking for new board members. And I just want to emphasize that the final decision is the mayor's. So, and sometimes she might have her own reasons for appointing someone other than the person who really wants to be on. So we'll continue to work with you if that happens. The majority of members must be people with disabilities, and these requirements come from the statute. 1 member may be a family member of a person with a disability. All members will serve in 3-year terms in a volunteer capacity, so there's no compensation. The board must keep records of meetings and correspondence, and the board must file an annual public report. So I've traditionally written up the public report, and again, it's a little bit because Boston is quasi staff and volunteer when you talk about commission. So I just felt like that was a heavy lift for the volunteers to do. So I write the annual report every year from my department, and I attached a link to all of our previous annual reports. So you can click here when you get the slide deck in email. Okay, next slide. So the advisory board has 4 official officers. The chairperson, who presides over all the meetings and appoints subcommittees as needed. We currently have 1 or 2 subcommittees that are inactive, and we would love to have people who are energetic about starting subcommittees. That would be really helpful to do work in between meetings, because it's really difficult to move initiatives forward when we only meet once a month and do the work at the meeting. So we're really interested in that. We have a vice chairperson, and their main duty is to perform all the functions of the chairperson if he or she is absent. The secretary ideally takes meeting minutes, attendance, and assists with writing letters and things like that. But as I said, my staff will also help with these tasks. And for treasurer, we have a treasurer, but they have no official duties at this time. In the statute, it does allow disability commissions in Massachusetts to collect fines for accessible parking violations, but the city of Boston did not take that option, so we do not have any funding that comes through the commission. The 4 officers are elected annually by the majority vote. These officers form the executive committee, and the executive committee meets once a month with my chief of staff to plan the upcoming agenda and to strategize about longer term goals. Next slide. So to talk a little bit about meetings. This is our biggest interaction with the advisory board, and this is really the public's biggest interaction as well. So in the statute, we are required to have at least 10 public meetings every year. We typically have 11 or 12, depending on the holiday schedule. Sometimes we'll combine November and December, Last year we didn't. We were able to do November and December because we were all meeting virtually, so it was really easy. But when we used to meet in person, we usually combine them. So we'll wait and see what happens on that front. Our public meetings are held once a month. This year they're scheduled on Wednesdays from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. They're currently held on Zoom, but when we're in person, they're typically held in the City Council chamber. And if you haven't been into City Hall or the Ionella chamber recently, it was renovated about 4 years ago. It's now completely accessible. It's really a model of accessibility. And they just happen to have 13 desks because of the 13 city councilors. So every board member gets their own desk, an accessible microphone, and it's a really nice big space with audio visual. The latest technical needs that we have are met, and it has room for ASL interpreters to have good sight lines, room for power chairs and guide dogs. So it's a great place to meet. Members are expected to attend and participate in all meetings. And this is something that we hope new members will bring some excitement and enthusiasm with. We want to hear new ideas. We want to hear about new initiatives and hear things from your lived experience. And any member may be removed if they're absent from 3 meetings in any 1 year. Next slide. Okay, so some of the advisory board activities. The main thing that you will work on is to really outline and uplift the priorities of the disability community in Boston. Your job is to tell me what's important, and then I, in turn, tell the mayor what's important. So we really want to hear from you. What's happening in your neighborhoods, what's happening in your families, what's happening in the Boston Public Schools or BCYF centers, what's happening when you go to vote, what's happening that we can work on, that the mayor can work on to improve. You'll also make motions for votes and then vote on important issues. You can propose other actions and initiatives, like call for a hearing in the city council or call to draft an ordinance on a particular topic. You can write letters to leaders and officials on issues of importance. I know one letter that the board has written in the last few years had to do, well, 2 of them actually. One was on the vaccine rollout, how the board felt that people with disabilities weren't prioritized. And then the second one, well, the first one was on testing, and then the second one was on vaccination. So things like that, they sent the letters to the governor and to the mayor. So the board really has some weight behind it. So we encourage the board always to put their thoughts in writing and send them to the people who can make changes. Another activity is to coordinate with the Mass Office on Disability. MOD oversees all the disability commissions across the state. They hold different trainings, like training in architectural access. They hold regional meetings for different commissions to get together all on a Zoom call and learn about what other cities are doing. And then the last bullet is talking about CODA, which stands for the Commission on Disability Alliance. That is a network of local disability commissions. Sorry about that. And so this group was formed about 5 years ago. I actually helped to form it. And they meet on a Zoom call once a month. And it is like Brookline, Cambridge, Newton, Revere, about 7 or 8, maybe even 9 or 10 local disability commissions get together on a call. And we talk about issues that we're all dealing with, things like bike lanes and Uber, accessible cabs, or like what's happening with accessible voting, electronic voting. So we're all working on the same things, and it's really important to get together and see what our colleagues are working on. Next slide. Okay, so I know I went through that really fast, but I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So now I'm going to introduce our current board members. I'm going to read their names, and then I will turn it over for them to give a quick intro of themselves, and then ask them ask them to say one thing they like about serving on the board. So Wesley Ireland is our chairperson. Ducia Lubiskova is our vice chair. Paul Karen is our secretary, and Carl Richardson is our treasurer. We just held the elections in March, I believe, so they will all be in office until next year. And then the other board members are Olivia Richard, who's a former chairperson, Jerry Boyd, who's a former chairperson, Elizabeth Dean Clower, who is a former vice chair, Zaria Husseini, who served for a long time, Juan Carlos Ramirez Tapia, who's also been on for a while, Alice Fisher is one of our newer board members, and Yardley Sanchez. So now I'm going to turn it over to Colleen if she wants to call on each board member who's present to say a few words.
Sure, we have some board members here in the Zoom room. And Jerry, I'm going to spotlight you. And if you want to introduce yourself, you can start.
Okay, great. Thank you, and thank you for having the opportunity to meet with everyone. And I hope that folks who are interested in participating on the board or joining the board find this meeting helpful and decide to move forward with their candidacy after today's meeting. As Colleen and the commissioner said, my name is Jerry Boyd. I've been on this is the middle of my second term, as a member of the advisory board. And as the commissioner also said, I was also, a past chair person of the advisory board. I served in that capacity for 2 years of my term, and I felt like it was a good opportunity to give someone else an opportunity to serve in a leadership role, and I think that's a good model. So hopefully the advisory board will continue to do that in the future. What I enjoy about serving on the advisory board is that I really like hearing from other members of the community about what issues are important to them, and being able to bring it either to the commissioner or through the commissioner to her staff and to the mayor's office or the city council, for example, and seeing something get done about it. One thing that we've been working on as an advisory board is trying to get an ordinance around better communication access for folks with who are deaf or hard of hearing, to make sure that all public facilities like bars and restaurants have the closed captioning turned on their televisions. And that's that came directly out of work that we did as an advisory board, and that's moving through the process a little slowly, but it's moving through the process, and that's very rewarding to see the stuff that we work on as a board actually help the disability community at large for the city. So that's why I enjoy being on the board, and so I'll let someone else have an opportunity. But again, any questions that you have, anything that I can help with, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thanks, Jerry. And then our current vice chair is here in the Zoom room. Ducia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Colleen. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ducia Lebovskaya, or Ducia for short. And as Colleen mentioned, I am the present vice chair. What I enjoy about the commission and being on the board is I have to second what Jerry said, because I've been for a while here and I enjoy the community. I enjoy the team, the work, like working as a team. If there's any questions that I have, or if there's anything that we can support each other with, if there's whether it's like if it's in our particular community, like I'm in the heart of Boston, and if there's something that concerns me, if there's something that worries me, and I don't know if I sometimes I just don't know to whom to talk to. Sometimes I want to address it to the mayor's office or somebody. So I just reach out to my team. I reach out to the board members or even Kristen McCosh and say, okay, what can I do? What can we do to get this resolved? And I enjoy that because I don't have to worry that I don't have to worry that they will look at me funny or they will say, no, we can't do this. There will always be a way, even if there's something that our board cannot specifically work on, but we can write a letter together to the mayor or do something in our individual communities and make sure that the problem, that it gets resolved, whatever the situation is. And that's why I enjoy being on this board because we just work as a team, and I love teamwork and I love the collaboration that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ducia. We have two other board members in the Zoom room. Alice Fisher, do you want to go next?
Okay. I'm Alice Fisher, and I'm one of the new members of the board. I was very excited to join this board. I'm someone with a disability, and I've been at various times in my life very involved in the disability community, as well as the LGBTQ aging community. And the meeting of the two is very important to me and in my ideas about what to do in my volunteer existence. And so when I'm at the meetings, I'm hearing so much about the issues and getting clearer about what the primary issues are for the disability community and my part in the disability community and my presence in LGBTQ events, because they know I'm on the disability community, is beginning to be more important within those meetings too. And they know I'm a source of some information, and it makes a big difference. So it's been a fun time so far. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Alice. And Juan Carlos is in the Zoom room. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, everyone can hear me, right? So hello, everyone. It's always a pleasure to meet new members and also to meet everyone who is interested in collaborating in this group. Jerry, Ducia, Alice have summarized greatly all the efforts that the board is making for the community. The things that I like the most is basically that, because each one of us have different experiences. We come from very diverse backgrounds, and we try to bring all that little knowledge that we have accumulated over the years and try to bring it to the table where we can open the discussions for everyone. It's also great because it's an opportunity to hear also things that sometimes you may not be aware of what's happening, and learning these kind of things and distribute it through your network is so valuable, because one of the things that we have to continue promoting is that there is people out there that are really interested to helping you to make your life easier and especially fair, right? So this is a great opportunity for everyone to make your voices be heard. Again, my name is Juan Carlos. I am from Peru. Been living in Boston for a really long time. It's my home now. And anything that I can do to make it better, I would likely do it. This place is a place where I can also make a difference with everyone else in the board.
Thank you. And there was one more board member who joined the room, and Carl, we're just doing quick introductions of board members if they would like to speak and introduce themselves briefly.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So this is Carl Richardson. I am a deafblind constituent. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, in Brighton Center, actually. I'm also an ADA coordinator at the Massachusetts State House, and I might be the longest standing member of the board. I've been on and off it for about 12 years now, and I'm very proud of the work the board has done, from audible pedestrian signals to accessible sidewalks to interpreters of the press conferences to accessible taxi cabs, wave vehicles, accessible buildings and recreational parks, and checklists is done for the folks to do. Used to be called BLA. I'm not sure what it's called now, but I'm very proud of the work it's done, and I hope that we can get some new fresh blood onto the board to look at things from a different perspective.
Great, thank you, Carl. And those are all the board members in the Zoom room.
So I just want to highlight one thing that Alice brought up, which is really critical, and it's an important piece of the board. And she mentioned her affiliation with LGBT groups. And I just want to say that we all come with different experiences and different connections. And we know having a disability or having a family member with a disability, other factors of our life impact that. And it's known as intersectionality. We know that Boston has a really strong, thriving, well-informed, well-educated advocacy group. Disability advocates know the laws, they know their rights, and they're willing to speak up for their rights. So that's why it's so important for us to have this representation on the board. We want you to have a seat at the table. We want Mayor Wu to hear the concerns, to know what's working, to know what's not working. So, you know, in your applications, we want you to highlight the different aspects of your life and what you think you could bring to the board. That's really important for us to know. Again, like we said, we really want to work in underserved communities because we know some communities get a lot of attention and some communities don't. So we really want to help with equity, people with disabilities. If you have a disability and then you have other factors, it's compounding and really making more struggles and more barriers in your life that hopefully we can help alleviate through policies, programs, and services. So with that, Colleen, I'm going to ask if you want to field questions live and read the questions in the chat, and I can take a shot at the answers and also turn to board members if they have some input.
Yes, great. So if you have a question live, please raise your hand or otherwise let us know that you want to ask your question live. But in the chat, there's a question that reads, does treasurer account for funds or funding raising money?
Okay, so thanks for that question, James. So as I mentioned in the overview of the board's responsibilities, there is a treasurer who is an officer, and the state statute does call for disability commissions to be able to collect funds from accessible parking violations. However, the city of Boston chose not to do that. And the reason is because we collaborate with Public Works and BTD on all kinds of work on accessible parking, accessible infrastructure upgrades on sidewalks, intersections, parks, playgrounds. So when we did the analysis, it turns out that Boston spends a lot more money than just what they collect in accessible parking fines. It was something like a 20-to-1 ratio. So if we collected the money from the parking fines, that would be the only pool of money we would have on accessibility infrastructure. And we would rather keep it the way it's working now, which is that the city departments spend the money on infrastructure. And it's a good chunk of their budgets right now. So it works best that way.
Thank you.
And I see James has also asked in the chat if an application form is available. And I have that Google form link that I'm going to drop in the chat right now for you to apply.
We can also follow up this meeting with emails to everybody, and we'll include a link to the statute. We'll include the slide presentation and a form for an application. And if you've already applied, we still have your application. But if you want to add anything to it, now's the time. If there are things you want to tell us about yourself or things you've done in your life since you've applied, please feel free to supplement it with anything you'd like us to know. Great. And while we wait, see if there are one or two final questions, I just want to let you know about a couple of other activities. Every year we host a disability community forum in the spring. We usually hold that in May. We just had it over a month ago now. And the board members co-host that with me. So it's a chance for us to meet with the community. They can ask us questions similar to this. We talk about our work, what we're doing as a board, what initiatives we're pushing through. And it's a great event if any of you came. And then our other big event every year is ADA Day. I'm sure some of you may have attended in the past. We will be live this year on City Hall Plaza. The newly renovated plaza is going to be fully accessible. No more stairs, no more steep ramps. It's going to be sloped, gentle walkways and full access. And the board was a big piece of this. They gave a lot of input. They went to presentations with architects and planners and designers and really talked about their priorities. So a big shout out to the board for helping push the access on the plaza. So we invite you all to join us. It's going to be Tuesday, July 19th from 12 to 2 p.m. on City Hall Plaza. You'll get a great t-shirt, free t-shirts, free food, music, and lots of information on disability services in Boston. And we'll put this flyer in the email as well. And it's just about 6:30. We have time for one or two more questions if anyone has one.
Hi. I have a question about the commission's relationship with the ride. I don't use the ride, I still drive, but I hear a lot of folks complaining about it. I'm very well connected with the senior community, and it breaks my heart to hear some of the stories. And so I'm just wondering, has the commission worked with the ride in the past? Do they have plans to do it in the future? Or just what is your position with the ride?
Thanks, Paulette. That's an excellent question. So I will say from our department office, we have a very close working relationship with the ride. As I'm sure you know, and everyone knows, the city of Boston does not oversee the ride in any way, but we do collaborate with them. If there's something systemic that I'm hearing from residents, that's a policy issue or a practice, I can certainly elevate that to the director. They do have a new director who I don't know as well, but I work very closely with the previous director. So we definitely work on big picture problems. And then sometimes if it's one-on-one complaints, we'll try to elevate those if we hear the same complaint from a lot of people. But you know, we do try to collaborate with them with the knowledge that we can't control any of their actions. However, several of my board members, and I'm looking at Jerry, do serve on RTAG, which I'm not even sure what that stands for, but I'm going to turn it over to Jerry to talk about his work with the ride.
Sure. RTAG is the, it kind of replaced the old ACT committee, the kind of the disability advocacy committee, organization that used to hold monthly meetings at the transportation building with the vendors for the ride. That transitioned a few years ago into RTAG, the Riders Transportation Access Group, and several myself and Elizabeth Dean-Clower, also a board member, are also members of the RTAG executive board. So we work, you know, we bring issues facing riders to our monthly advisory meetings, and you know, that's kind of that intersectionality kind of thing. We bring issues that we've been hearing to the advisory board, and the advisory board brings issues that they've been hearing in their community about the ride. And so we bring those back to T leadership. RTAG has, and specifically the ride subcommittee has monthly meetings with the head of the ride and her staff. So the advisory definitely has a big voice, you know, with the ride, and I'm very happy to hear that, to see that so far, you know, the new leadership at the ride seems to have heard the public's outcries of poor service, and is really listening to us and working with us to make sure that they have that improvements are being made. But certainly, if you have concerns, you know, feel free to let the commissioner know, and she can let myself know, or you know, she can bring it to T leadership herself. But like I said, I'm very happy that lately, especially the leadership of the ride seems to want a better relationship with the disability community, and we're trying to make that happen. So,
and Paulette, this is a perfect example of an action that the board could take. A board member could propose a vote to write a letter to the ride management to say, we have concerns about these policies and riders are experiencing these issues. We would appreciate it if you would look into us and communicate with us updates as they happen. So that's a great issue to bring up. And yeah, that's a great action that could come out of a board meeting. Colleen?
We have another question in the chat we might have time for. It's from Michael, and it's, are there any current parents on the board of children at BPS?
So that's a great question, Michael. welcome back. I know you came to a few meetings several years ago. I remember when your wife was pregnant. So it's good to hear that May's in school. We don't currently have a BPS parent on the board. That's one of our big priorities because we know BPS is going through so many transitions, and special ed is always in the news. It's always a concern. We have the Greener New Deal, I think, for the Boston Public Schools, $2 billion for infrastructure upgrades. We saw a groundbreaking for the Carter School today. We know that serves students with disabilities. We know the Horace Mann School is moving to a brand new building. So many concerns with BPS. We're actually hiring more staff this summer, fingers crossed, to actually work on BPS issues. So yeah, we would love to have a parent. So I believe you applied several years ago, but please update your application if you're interested.
I will. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right, we have time for one more question and then we'll let everybody get back to their busy schedules if anybody wants to ask a final question. All righty, well, good timing, everybody. Just a few minutes over. So I hope this was helpful and informative. We encourage everybody to email us after the presentation and let us know if you're still interested, if we have your application, and if not, please fill out a new application. And Colleen, who is our outreach and engagement specialist, she will be sending you all an email tomorrow with all the information from tonight. And our next board meeting is in July. Do we have the date handy, anybody?
It's July 13th.
July 13th. And as I said, right now we're meeting on Zoom. The public is welcome and encouraged to participate. You can actually join the Zoom meeting like this, or you could watch it just online on the city cable channel or on BNN, I believe. I'm not sure about that, but there are many ways to participate. So please join us. You can always watch them on YouTube afterwards as well. All right, thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure speaking with you tonight, and we hope to see you again soon.